So all month we've been looking at who is God to us, and because it is Mother's Day has landed in this month, I've really focused on the feminine aspect, and I want to continue a little bit more on this feminine aspect of who God is to us through this wonderful thing called nature. I lived in LA for 6 years, and then I had a period of about 7 months of living in Grand Junction, Colorado. Grand Junction is a town, the biggest town in between Salt Lake City and Denver. So it's 4 hours to the west is Salt Lake City, 4 hours to the east is Denver, and then you have Grand Junction, which is about Livermore size. So there's just a lot of land. And when I was living there, I would just go on these long hikes, and I got to feel how slow, when we are in tune with nature, God, if we look at God, we can go back and forth whether we choose to see nature as the divine feminine, but often you consider the divine feminine, Mother Nature. We feel how slow her rhythm is. It's not rushing. It's not fast-paced. You see how long it has. Right outside Grand Junction is the largest mesa in the whole world. It takes millions of years to create this land, this beautiful structures, and LA, which I think of as being much slower than the East Coast, still felt so fast-paced compared to the rhythm of this land, and it affected the whole town. The whole town moved slowly. I remember going through a cashier, and she kept talking to me, and I kept thinking, but there's people in line, and I could come on, and nobody seemed to be worried about this, that she just wanted to talk about life, and so it was a different rhythm, and I found that it started feeding my soul, that I was missing that slow harmony. And so as we're moving into what spirituality is, who God is to us, it's important for us to start recognizing that when we go into those deeper places, that it is a much slower rhythm than what we get often at the surface. Often the surface, even our spirituality, is moving very fast-paced. I mean, I should have collected them, just the amount of emails I got this week telling me about the radical new ways to approach spirituality for the 21st century, and there's an urgency, and you got to learn this, and you got to learn that, and there's these new workshops, and we're on the cutting evolutionary edge, and we're pushing the boundaries of spirituality as never before. And I'm thinking, but when I've taken some of these courses because I get curious, and it's the same stuff that's been around for thousands of years. There's a reason why the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Taoists and the Christian mystics and the Jewish mystics, they've been practicing and tailoring with this for thousands of years. So all this new improved, it's sort of our monkey mind to me, it's becoming part of, our spirituality is becoming part of the normal marketplace, the new and improved. Here's the better edition. And we want to get caught up on the better edition to find this new way of doing things. But if we just start letting ourselves recognize that, we don't need to judge it, but start saying, actually, this spirituality has always been here. It's nothing new. It's always been the source of all creation. And we start tuning into that rhythm. We start slowing down a little. We stop worrying so much if I've done all the stuff that I need to do to feel spiritual. There's letting go of the making something happen. I remember Andrew Cohen, who's a spiritual teacher, kept saying, well, there's an urgency in spirit. There's an urgency in spirit. And I'm like, an urgency towards what? I don't know where we're going. But no, there is an evolutionary force. I don't mean to say that. But it has its own rhythm, and we can't push that rhythm. It's like pushing the river. And we want to follow the flow of it. Shunryu Suzuki, the Zen master who came from Japan here to San Francisco at the Zen Center, he would always say, actually, the way to practice Zen was to not try. You sit and you do it, but as long as you have effort, you're out of the flow. So it was how to both have right effort, which is to sit, to take the time to sit, but then not sit with, I'm going to become enlightened, I'm going to be awake. Just let go. Just trust that whatever is, it's okay. And there is that's the aspect of our life and the harmony that we are wanting to call forth in our world today. Because we don't want to pretend things aren't changing. Things are changing with the incredible pace of technology, and technology is impacting every area of our life. We can't just, and I'm probably worse than everyone here, of trying to pretend technology doesn't exist. But it does. And it's going to impact everything. Climate change is happening, albeit very slowly, as nature does, but it is happening. We have more unrest with the politics and government and the economic system and school systems than we've ever had before. And to this extent where I hear more talk about overthrowing things and getting rid of things and changing things. And it seems also radical, this energy, this pushing of this is not okay anymore. And I was called this past week, when I was a young girl, I watched a series with my dad called Fall of Eagles by the BBC. And it was about the German/Prussia Empire, Austrian Empire, and Russian Empire. So that was the three eagles, the three monarchies. And it starts around 1850, and it goes till about the 1920s when all of them fall. So you have all these monarchies, and so as you're watching this series, it's amazing how many of the things that were being said then I hear now in America, this displeasure of how things are being run. And you could see the revolutionary forces. This is not okay. This is not okay. We can't accept this anymore. And it was inevitable. Their spirit does evolve. It was saying this is no longer okay. So in the early 1900s, after World War I, all three of the monarchies fell. And it didn't matter. What was interesting to me is all of the czars or emperors, whatever their names were in each of the countries, they all had very different styles. Because I think sometimes we'll say, well, if they just did it differently. But they all had different styles, and they all fell because this evolutionary force had to take place. To move, there was this push from monarchy into democracy that these countries, well, not in Russia. And in Russia, it was far more violent, too, in terms of they killed the czar. The other ones were able to leave without being murdered. But there was a push for something different than what was happening. And I see that today. I see there's just this growing energy of this is no longer okay, the way the CEOs are making so much more money, and that there's so many people who aren't making money, and the amount of poverty in a country that's supposed to be so wealthy, that with our technology and the communication that's happening, there's a greater compassion that's arising and saying this separation, I guess it's worse than it's ever been. It's clearly more apparent than it's ever been because we see it more, we feel it more. So what does this have to do with this rhythm? Well, there's a couple things. One is to start tapping into this rhythm. It always does evolve. This planet has been evolving. But we don't want to push it either. We don't want to try to force it and use our minds to create it. We want to follow the rhythm of this change so it can flow with less violence, with less suffering. Because the more we try to either force it to happen, we force the change to happen, then you get a lot of violence and death and war. And if you try to resist it, then you're on the other side of it and just going through a lot of suffering and all your resistance. So the idea is, as spirit is evolving into form through all of us, we follow our own rhythm, and as we start following the rhythm of ourselves, there's only one life, there's only one power. So we start following that rhythm, we're going to start finding that flow. We're going to find that flow of the river and that divine energy that's pulling us. And we're going to start making decisions for our own individual lives that are in alignment with the highest good for the whole planet. The other aspect of this that's important for us to remember is that we all are affected by one another. And sometimes we like to think of ourselves as being very individual, but what they're finding over and over is how we all impact one another. There's a book that I've been reading, Social Physics, and it's about these guys at MIT, and they actually find lots of people who are willing to be followed using their phone. So they said we get millions of data just in an hour of who they're talking to, where they're going, what their locations, their conversations, what they're choosing, what they're buying. They say we have so much more data than we've ever had before. We've never even close to anything that's happening now. And what we're discovering is that people are very influenced by what other people are doing. They're very influenced by what they're reading on Facebook, what other people are doing, what their friends are doing, conversations that they've had, even periphery conversations, even conversations that we're not part of, but we hear other people having, are impacting our decision making. And so what they're saying was that actually we're making a lot of decisions, even about what we think we desire, what we think is important, our values and our beliefs are coming from a collective sense of understanding about what's important, and not just from our own individual, we're an island and I'm going to sit in my room and figure out what's important for me. No one's an island. There's only one power, one presence. And so it starts to become conscious that from the cosmos to the planet to our own country that we're part of, the Bay Area, Livermore, all the little systems that we are in, we are all impacted. It's all being impacted. Every day it's impacting decisions that we make that we may not even realize. And so our job is to continue to create a community and an energy that's tapping into that highest idea. we want to be a collective community that hears and feels the rhythm of God moving into form. And one of the things that blocks us is our, as we heard in the reading, is our desires and our fears. We don't always see things clearly. So last night, I was actually going to work on my talk, but Jack and Julian started watching Moneyball, and I thought I was just going to be totally bored, but I watched the whole thing with them. It was great. So Moneyball is about Billy Beane and the Oakland A's, and they don't have any money compared to like the Yankees and Red Sox, but he uses a statistics system. So the movie is about him taking in the statistics and completely changing what players they get. What's interesting, and they end up breaking a record, 20 games won in a row, and they did very well, especially for their salaries. They didn't win the World Series, but they did very well. But what was interesting is the scouts, they were so angry. They're like, well, you don't get the we've been in this for 30 years, and we feel it, and we can tell who's good and who's not. And yet the discussion, it was so interesting was, well, he just looks funny when he throws, and we can't have him, and he's got the right face. And we don't even realize how much we cipher out because of our predilections. We think, oh, this is going to work. I like this because I'm attracted to it. Oh, I don't like this, so we just don't even notice it. So what they ended up taking were a lot of misfits that were showing up statistically, but didn't have the physicality that people wanted. So nobody was hiring these baseball players who ended up serving the Oakland A's for very little money and doing extremely well. That's the desires, and those are the loathing, and that tends to block us on our journey of following this rhythm, because we have a rhythm, but we also have our predispositions of what we kind of want and what we kind of don't want. And we try to pretend that we're moving free flow, but we have a lot of these blocks. And what we need to start moving, and that's the part of community, is we start feeling into the community rhythm, then we can start listening and saying, okay, am I hearing what everyone else is hearing? Am I feeling into what everyone else is feeling? Is it vibrating? I had a wonderful experience of this when I first learned the visioning process. Visioning is a process where you get a group of people together, and you go into the stillness, you anchor into that infinite wisdom that is beyond time and space, that knows all. So it's time and space beyond time and space, but includes all time and space. And so you enter in and you ask questions. And in this particular case, I'd never done visioning before. I barely understood what it was. They asked me to participate, and it was for this gentleman's ministry. And so it was 30 people, and they said, well, we're going to ask these questions, and you just sit in meditation and see what you're hearing, what you're feeling comes up. And then after it's over, we'll all share. I was already sure when it started that I wasn't going to share because I didn't really get what they were talking about, and I was sure I never heard of this guy. I didn't know who he was. So I sat in the circle, and we did this visioning, what's the highest vision for Shanti's ministry, and we just listen and see what comes forth. We're listening to that deep rhythm. I sat shocked. I didn't know 28 of the 30 people in that circle. I didn't know who we were visioning for. I got almost the exact same vision as almost everyone in that room. I just thought, wow, there really is only one mind, one power. We say that. We say there's only one, but then we start focusing, well, what do I want? But when we start feeling that collective energy, but here's the fascinating part. So everybody's sharing what they got. And he couldn't hear it because he had a very definite idea of what his vision for his ministry was. And he said, well, that was all really nice. I really appreciate you coming. But here's where I see where my ministry's going. And that's that block that we have. We don't want to. That's why I think sometimes statistics make us nervous, because we don't get to impose our feelings and our emotions on it. But if we start really listening and try to listen, saying, well, are other people seeing this for me? Am I in rhythm? Is the rhythm that I'm getting influenced by my own unique desires? Not my unique desires, my own holding on, my attachments, the things that I really want and I'm not willing to let go of, or the things I really don't want? Or am I really able to listen and to hear what is wanting to be birthed, what is wanting to be flowing through us? So one of the things we're going to be doing as a community is this summer on Thursdays, we're going to have group silent meditation. And the energy and the purpose of that is so we can start going into those depths as a community. We want to start creating an energy that's in alignment with the flow. There's so much energy out there, to me, that feels very scattered and all over the place. People are catching it on some level, but then there's like this crazy energy around it. And so for me to integrate this feminine energy is to also create this peace, this deep peace, this abiding energy with the rhythm of the universe, and to feel it and to move into alignment with this incredible womb of creation and create this stillness and feel it as a community. And what you find, whether you're meditating together or visioning together, it's not about then going out and doing something or making something happen. It's not like after we meditate, we have to go out, okay, this was the feeling I got, now I got to go and create it. It starts to happen. It starts to flow. The things that need to start showing up in our individual lives, because we're part of the vision. We're essential to the vision. So it impacts, that was the first line of the purpose statement, it impacts each and every one of us on our own individual evolution, because we're all impacted by one another. And we are collectively making a powerful anchoring point for spirit on earth. As it's going through these transitions, these major evolutionary places, we become that conscious point of light as a community to feel that rhythm. And again, it's not about here, this is what we're doing. It's about this rhythm that starts to come up through the pores of our skin. We start to radiate, and people feel that by being in our presence. I was at a center this past Tuesday. I was taking a meditation class. And before the class even started, everyone meditates before the class starts. So it was just stillness. And I was sitting in there. So the class starts at 7. We were just sitting there quietly in meditation. And I used to go to Agape, which is a center in Los Angeles. Totally different energy. High energy, everyone's singing, and the thousands of people, joy, and blah. But in Agape, there's meditation before service too. And I was sitting in this place that is always quiet. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the exact same energy that's at Agape. The expression is different, but that rhythm below, exactly the same. And so what happens is we start tapping into that energy below. We start connecting with all the spiritual communities, all the people who are both individually and collectively doing this work. We start feeling that rhythm, and we start drawing each other and creating these deep, powerful connections and relationships. And that's how we're creating heaven on earth. As collective, but as individuals too. So we see this wonderful marriage of our individual growth creating heaven on earth, our community creating heaven on earth, and that heaven on earth. I loved what Reverend Ellen Grace O'Brien said. She said the only obstacle for us to becoming enlightened is our belief that it's not possible. Our only obstacle to believe that heaven isn't possible to be on earth is our belief that it's not possible. That's the obstacle we need to get past, because it is possible, and it starts with us, and it starts with us here today. Yes? So we'll do our practice. So my invitation this week is to take those times to meditate, but also just, do you notice your own rhythm? What's your own rhythm? What's the rhythm of your home life like? The relationships? What's the rhythm of your work life? Can you feel the rhythm? So you're not just thinking about it, because this is beyond concepts. Just start feeling that deep rhythm. What's the rhythm of my workplace? What's the rhythm when I'm in free time? What's my free time like? What's that rhythm like? Start feeling that rhythm, and are we open to allowing a deeper rhythm to emerge where it needs to, are there blocked energies in my work life, in my home life, in my free time life? And what can I do to become more of an open and available energy and not blocked? So that's your invitation this week. Are you willing to try it? Yes. Thank you. Yay, God. Okay. And so let us now go into prayer. And how grateful I am to join with everyone in this room right now. There's nobody in this room that is alone or isolated or separate. There is only one thing in this room. And we are all this one thing. We are all part of it. There's no higher or lower. There's no good. There's no bad. There's no better. There's no worse. In this one life, it is all equal. It is all one. And so I feel this wonderful unification of this one life. And as I know this one life here in this room, I feel this one life with all the spiritual centers all around the planet. those individual spiritual centers, those who are doing this work by themselves, with their families, with their communities, whatever their paths are, we unify with them now. And we unify with the saints and sages from all the world's religions and paths on the other side of the veil. Knowing that even as we are doing this work on earth, there is so much work happening in the subtle levels to support what we are about here. And that we are moving into alignment, into harmony, into that beautiful rhythm of the one life and the one harmony. We let go of thinking that there's anything we need to make happen, to force, to push, to change. We let all of that energy just drop into this one life, this one power, one power, one power. And it is the power of our life. And even now it is revealing itself as never before. It is revealing its wholeness and its perfection, its divine beauty, its divine harmony, it's all aspects of our life. It includes all that we have ever been and ever will be. It includes every thought that we have ever had. It includes every emotion we've ever had. It includes every experience that we've had on the physical, emotional, mental, subtle, psychic, causal level. On every level and dimension of our being is this one life. And it is revealing itself as never before, as its beauty, of its harmony, of its peace, of its joy, of its abundance, of its bliss. It is who we are now, and we can never be outside of it. And it is this awakening and this awareness that's happening right now in our body temple that is changing all the planet. And we are moving into alignment with all the other beings and conscious beings on this planet. And we are in God's rhythm, not in human beings' rhythm, but in God's rhythm, flowing with this wonderful flow into a new creation, into a new life. Day by day, hour by hour, breath by breath, we are moving into this harmony beyond our wildest imagination, this beauty, this magnificence, this joy beyond our wildest imagination, and it is happening now. It is anchored in us now. And so for the beauty and the magnificence and the harmony and the joy of God that is alive and awake now, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, Mother, Father, God, for the fulfillment that you are as us, as this community, and as this entire planet Earth and all dimensions. For the magnificence and glory, glory be to God. I release this word now, knowing it truly is already done as it is spoken. And so in deep abiding joy and infinite peace, I just release it now. And I invite us all to say together, and so it is. Amen.